their bodies could be converted into mindless cyborg workers built for repetitive tasks. But the most haunting
Hold on
fate
real quick. I'm
belongs to
putting something
those
in
who
the
failed with
oven. Give me one
distinction.
second.
Aspirants showing real leadership ability, but lacking physical compatibility, were diverted into Group Hadrianus, becoming blood servants, personal
One
attendants who
second. I'm
would
putting
spend the
something
rest
in
of
the
their
oven.
lives serving warriors they had once hoped to become.
Hold
To
on. I'm
reach
putting
even
something in
this
the oven.
lowest
Hold
tier,
on.
the aspirant gave up everything he had ever known. He lost his family, his clan name, his native language, and any chance of a normal life. Recruits wore shaved hairless and forced to learn Imperial Gothic through sleep learning devices, erasing their native cultures entirely. Failure to adapt
Oh, sorry.
proved that the candidate's mind would not survive the
Oh,
far
didn't let
more
her come up?
demanding
I
training
let.
ahead.
You should let her
The
up. Okay,
aspirin
I'm back.
remained at this tier until one irreversible moment. For the Blood Angels, that meant the ritual of insanguination, consuming the blood of the Gene Father and surviving a year of biological change, sealed inside a sarcophagus. For other warrior orders, it began with the first gene seed implants in the medical halls. Either way, the human being who entered that process was gone. The transformation rebuilt him from the inside out, but it left him incomplete. One implant was still missing, the single piece that separated a trainee from a true brother of war. Therefore, the warrior who emerged was stronger than any human alive, but still forbidden from wearing the one thing that would make him a true
I can't
space
see her
marine.
either. She's
Level
invisible.
2. The Neophyte Scout. The scout stood on the second level because he had become something no longer human, but he was not yet complete. Years of surgical procedures, chemical treatments, and biological implantation had rebuilt his body from the inside out. That
Yep.
single gap.
No, I cannot see her. Yep. No, her thing hasn't loaded in yet.
The mentally unstable received an honorable mind wiping, with the body afterward given over to research or nutrient processing. Behavioral failures, those who committed unauthorized violence or lacked basic self-control, were
Yep.
expelled and reduced to servants laboring in the depths of starships for their natural lives. After death, their bodies could be converted into mindless cyborg workers built
I
for
don't know.
repetitive tasks. But the most haunting fate belonged to those who failed with distinction. Aspirants showing real leadership ability, but lacking physical compatibility, were diverted into Group Hadrianus, becoming blood servants, personal attendants who would spend the rest of their lives serving warriors they had once hoped to become. To reach even this lowest tier, the aspirant gave up everything he had ever known. He lost his family, his clan name, his native language, and any chance of a normal life. Recruits were shaved hairless and forced to learn Imperial Gothic through sleep learning devices, erasing their native cultures
A
entirely.
2 minute?
Failure to adapt proved that the candidate's mind would not survive the far more demanding training ahead. The aspirant remained at this tier until one irreversible moment. For the Blood Angels, that meant the ritual of insanguination, consuming the blood of the Gene Father and surviving a year of biological change, sealed inside a sarcophagus. For other warrior orders, it began with the first gene seed implants in the medical halls. Either way, the human being who entered that process was gone. The transformation rebuilt him from the inside out, but it left him incomplete. One implant was still missing,
Yep.
the single piece that separated a trainee from a true brother of war. Therefore, the warrior who emerged
Okay.
was stronger than any human alive, but still forbidden from wearing the one thing that would make him a true space marine. Level 2. The Neophyte Scout. The scout stood on the second level because he had become something no longer human, but he was not yet complete. Years of surgical procedures, chemical treatments, and biological implantation had rebuilt his body from the inside out. That single gap, one missing implant, defined everything about this level. The cost of producing a neophyte was enormous. As detailed in the book Sons of Dorn, the process required 4 whole years of constant surgery, chemical treatment, and near endless mental conditioning. The Angels of Baal followed a different path, immersing their recruits in the Hall of Sarcophagi for an entire year, while organ seeds were implanted and activated by the blood of the Primal. Neither method came with a guaranteed return. But when the transformation succeeded, the change was total. Scouts of Sanguinius's line emerged from the sarcophagus with pale, smooth skin, fangs, and the sharp beauty of the great angel, strong enough to move a ton of machinery without difficulty. Their human bodies were gone. The exact number of organs that preceded the final implant varied between warrior orders, with some placing the Lincoln membrane as the 17th and others as the 19th. But the count did not matter. What mattered was the consequence. Without that membrane beneath the skin, the one creating interface ports for sealed battle plates, the Brotherhood's armor was useless to the young warrior. Scouts wore lighter protection, granting freedom of movement and the ability to stay hidden, but absorbing far less damage than full plate. Their heads remained bare, an exposed face marking them as unproven. Effectiveness at this stage came from surveillance and intelligence, not from standing in the front line. Neophyte scouts used color shifting cloaks, helping them blend into their surroundings. Sniper rifles for precision fire, enhanced long range optics for observation, and combat bikes for rapid strikes. They fed targeting data to senior squads, allowing precision operations that cannot happen without eyes on the ground. Their watchfulness bought the main force time to respond before a threat grew beyond control. To sharpen their edge, the young warriors trained with weighted practice swords, building the speed and agility they would need with real blades. But this level carried a spiritual burden that no rank above it shared.
Yeah.
Where the higher ranks focused on combat mastery and
Yeah.
leadership, the neophyte had to win the inner battle first. Sanguinius's heirs trained their scouts in the five angelic graces: focus, humility, mercy, restraint, and forgiveness. They practiced calligraphy, sculpting, and painting as spiritual discipline, saving their souls from the monsters within before receiving the full power of an angel. Other
Yeah.
warriors used the agony device at this stage for disciplinary punishment, ensuring each young warrior had the self control to resist the pull of chaos. Scouts were forbidden from entering the arena restricta for honor duels. They were kept from certain combat zones for their own protection. They were held to a standard of obedience that would not relax until the final membrane was implanted. For neophytes of the Blood Angels, the stakes of failure went beyond discipline. Failing during the sarcophagus transformation, or falling to blood hunger or the genetic madness known as the Black Rage, meant immediate execution by a warrior priest, no second chance. If the surgically implanted organs failed to integrate in any warrior order, the individual might fall into a permanent unresponsive state or spiral into uncontrollable hyperactivity. In high risk combat missions, the survival rate dropped as low as 0.7%. If a squad was compromised, the scouts were ordered to prioritize reporting intelligence over their own survival. The information mattered more than the warrior carrying it. The transition to the next level required biological readiness and battlefield proof. A senior squad leader had to recommend a scout based on leadership and survival under fire. Upon graduating from the 10th Company, the neophyte's former identity and name were erased entirely. The last trace of the child he had once been was gone. The warrior order had invested years in his body and mind. Now, he needed to see what that investment could do inside a sealed suit of armor, fighting beside warriors who had been waging war longer than most civilians had existed. Therefore, only one thing stood between the scout and full brotherhood: the final implant, and the right to wear the armor that came with it. Level 3. The Battle Brotherhood. Then came the level where everything changed. The full brother was where the promise of the aspirant and the training of the scout finally became real, biologically complete and fully armored. Recognized as a permanent member of the Brotherhood, everything below this had been preparation, but everything above had to be earned through decades or centuries of war. The defining upgrade was the interface membrane, the final implant connecting the Marine directly to his battle plate. The suit plugged into his spine through nerve electrodes, and its fiber bundle muscles amplified every movement. Optic sensors in the visor fed heat vision and diagnostic data straight into his brain. As described in the novel Brothers of the Snake, A battle brother in full armor was a post-human titan who could fight for days without sleep or food, sustained by nutrient packs built into the suit, moving silent as glaciers through dangerous environments. One line warrior was worth a dozen standard soldiers. That estimate only counted raw combat output. The impact of this rank reached far beyond the battlefield. To common citizens, the arrival of Space Marines meant the Emperor himself had not forgotten their world. Mortals saw them as legends from the stars, superhuman figures whose presence alone could hold a planet together. During a 2 month battle, their appearance among broken defenders lit a fire in every soldier who saw them, turning retreating guardsmen into fighters willing to stand and die before giving another step of ground. The psychological weight of a single brother far exceeded his combat output, and the Imperium depended on that effect as much as it depended on weapons fire. But earning a permanent place took far more than surviving the implantation. Every newly inducted brother had to rotate through years or decades of service in assault, devastator, and tactical formations before claiming a permanent tactical squad position. The Sons of Sanguinius followed a specific progression. Scout Company first, then Assault,
Yeah.
then Devastator. Structured to help the warrior conquer the blood hunger
Okay.
through increasing discipline before he could be trusted with the flexibility of a tactical role. Only after proving adaptability across all assignments did the brother earn his fixed place in the line. The cost was measured in a decade of surgical investment and the sacred biological inheritance of the Primarch. Each warrior carried two gene glands, the organic wellspring ensuring the Order's future. If a brother died before 5 years of service, the second gland cannot be harvested, meaning a permanent genetic loss. Because an order was limited to roughly 1,000
Yeah, babe.
warriors, losing even one was recorded as a tragedy for the entire Brotherhood. On the battlefield, a brother who failed his squad
Yeah.
paid with more than his life. Failure on the battlefield often meant death.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
The
Hold on, give me a
expectation
sec. Let
was
me see if we can do
clear.
it real quick.
A brother was meant to die in a way that inspired others. An honorable death in battle, one causing warriors to remember the fallen brother's deeds, was the standard. A shameful end at an enemy's mercy was the outcome the entire hierarchy worked to prevent. Moral failure carried equally harsh punishment. Public whipping and punishing physical drills in freezing, deadly environments served as punishment for pride or breaking squad rules. The nerve glove, a device simulating the agony of being burned alive without causing physical damage, built a mind that could command the body regardless of injury. Advancement came with a ceremony marking the brother as more than a recruit who would simply survive. The rite of the sharing of water, a privilege forbidden to those not yet deemed battle ready, meant the warrior had earned the right to advance under the banner and stand among proven warriors. But sealed armor was both a gift and a cage. It provided extraordinary strength and near total protection while stripping away individual character. Every brother looked identically cast to outsiders. He could no longer feel wind on his skin or be recognized by his own face. He was no longer a person in the way mortals understood the word. He had become a weapon, the basic unit of the Brotherhood's endless war, answering to his squad leader and holding his place in the formation. Some warriors held that place for decades, others held it for centuries, but a rare few proved that they could do something the standard brother could not. Fight with a precision that the Order reserved for missions where the line had already broken, and only something sharper could put it back together. Therefore, those warriors earned a place in a tier the rest of the Brotherhood could only look up to. Level 4. The Veteran Marine.
Okay.
The veteran marked the
Done.
transition from
I already gave
standard
it to you.
foot soldier
I already
to the
sent
Brotherhood's
it.
chosen elite, and his defining trait was precision over presence. Where a battle brother drew strength from the collective formation, the veteran gave that
But yes, I already sent
as a
it.
learned instrument. He was a specialist, a leader, and often a living legend whose deeds filled the pages of the Order's history. Effectiveness here was
I
defined
sent
by
it.
specialized mastery, going beyond anything a standard brother
I already
could.
sent it.
Elite warriors at this tier no longer served as generalists. They operated as a silent, precise blade rather than a blunt hammer, carrying out secret operations against alien threats, slipping behind enemy lines undetected, recovering
You have to
stolen
go
assets,
accept it.
and eliminating high-value targets.
Duh. You have to go accept it. Duh.
With sound suppressive
You have to
footage,
go accept it.
camouflage cells matching any environment, to advanced ammunition types like stalker rounds allowing kills go beyond normal range. The finest marksmen among them were deployed where the line was most vulnerable. While the Deathwing
You have to go accept it.
to this level. Orbital jump pack insertions, where veterans fired rocket motors to slow a freefall drop into a controlled, deadly landing right on top of enemy formations. That move demanded an instinct that only centuries of combat could build. The impact of a veteran's arrival could reshape an entire war. The same anthology provided one of the sharpest comparisons in the source material. The 43rd Carpathian Rifles, a mortal regiment of the Imperial Guard, had struggled through 9 months of battle without victory.
You have to go accept it.
Forced a complete surrender within 1 hour. The gap showed exactly why these elite warriors occupied a tier above the standard brother. They delivered results that entire mortal armies cannot.
Oh my god. You have to go accept it. You can't just have it, you have to go accept it.
Their faith had not been wasted. But when a veteran-led operation collapsed, the hierarchy's response revealed the clear boundary between this level and the next. Terminator veterans were brought in to take operational command and salvage the failure. Veterans deployed in small kill teams
Don't know.
were the weakness of one,
But you gotta do it here.
the weakness of all. A single tactical error during a precision strike could destroy the entire team and its mission. If a veteran died in a way preventing recovery of his genetic legacy organs, the Brotherhood lost a biological inheritance that had taken centuries to build. What truly separated the veteran from the battle brother went deeper than skill or equipment. It was the burden of knowledge. The Dark Angel's veterans had to confront
I don't know.
chapters of their
You just have to go accept it.
the truth of the fallen.
That's all I know.
Destruction of their own world, caliber. They took on the duties of interrogator chaplains, adding the book of salvation, and trading the simplicity of a standard brother's duty for a life of guilt-driven service and interrogation. When the angels of all, the blood hunger which younger brothers struggled to control, became a familiar
Try again, try again.
Veterans have learned to channel it.
How do you try? You can't do it again. After you send something, that's it. You can't send something twice. Do you not know how to send gifts?
Things like the Death Watch required the veterans to place their oaths to the order of
No one
God
has sent me that.
Then go watch a YouTube video.
Active spinal implants, the psychic abilities might be suppressed.
We're on YouTube now.
Then go watch one. Go figure it out. Go put in how to accept gifts. Sends up to.
Specialized deployments expected at this level. Those who survive gain access to advanced cellular
Laying on the
regeneration
dog.
facilities. But the path remained brutal. Veterans were rarely
I'm
deployed as
laying
a
on
single
my
unit.
doggo.
Instead, their strength was split up and spread
searching
across
it
different
now.
fighting
Well, it's not my dog. I'm just saying I'm a gay dog.
and strengthened standard squads, giving up the advantage of fighting together or the brotherhood's larger goals.
Are you a gangster?
Boundary between this level and the next. After winning the battle,
Let me redo it.
had to hand over the prizes of his skill to a lone Terminator dressed
Why
in
are you a
full
gangster?
That act acknowledged that the senior company's ancient honor
Why are you a
suits
gangster?
represented a tier the standard veteran had not yet reached. The order needed warriors who could survive when everything else had failed.
Rawr.
Fighters walking into places where nothing came back alive, wearing armor so ancient and powerful that putting it on.
Are you
was the
roaring at me,
highest
Mrs.
honor the
Jigglebits?
Brotherhood could grant. Level 5, the Terminator Veteran. Then came the warriors.
Okay,
who
all you have to
bore
do is go
down
to your mail.
The Terminator veteran represented the absolute ceiling of what a
Go
sportsman
to your
could
mail.
become as a combat specialist. These warriors belonged to the senior
Go
company,
to your
the
mail.
most elite formation in the order, and one thing set them
Go to
apart
your
from the
mail.
standard veterans: access to the heaviest
Go to your
personal
mail.
armor the Imperium ever produced. The suits were so rare that wearing one was considered the ultimate honor a warrior
Go to the
could
mail.
receive. But reaching this level took more than centuries of survival. Rigorous years of extra training beyond standard veteran service were demanded before a
Go to your
warrior
mail.
could wear the armor. The novel Space Hulk Describe the warriors at this tier as old veterans with centuries of battle experience. Each one
Go to your mail, little boy.
cannot be replaced. Name squads like Adamanta,
Pedro, go to your mail.
Each carrying enough collective skill to shift the outcome of a planetary
Go to the mail,
The armor stood
Pedro.
over 8 feet tall. Layers of titanium and layered battle plates absorb fire from anti-tank weapons and heavy cannons. A built-in sensor system projected outlines and heat readings directly onto a warrior's vision, letting him track alien threats through walls and floors. At close range, power fists and thunderhammers crush anything they hit, while lightning claws carve through reinforced walls like a blade through flesh. A single squad could push through a gap in a defensive line and send armored vehicles into full retreat. And specialized assault formations built around these heavy elites were designed to destroy the toughest targets in the galaxy, from world-killing alien war engines to traitorous battle titans. But the most important measure at this level was not what these armored giants accomplished. It was what happened when they failed. They drew the missions where failure threatened entire species. On space hulks crawling with alien creatures, the only goal was to stop the threat from spreading. If the heavy elites failed to destroy hibernation nests, the infection could spread to other ships and distant worlds. Therefore, even these warriors were considered disposable if the mission demanded it. They deployed through teleportation, appearing in a binding flash of blue light directly inside enemy bases. But the same technology came with serious
You're on the home
dangers.
screen.
Energy disruption could block the signal needed to pull them out. If the window closed, there
I
was
literally
no
just said you're not
withdrawal.
on the home screen. I said it's on the home screen. You're like, I can't find it. Well, no shit, because you're not on the home
Cost of
screen.
maintaining this level
It's on the
was
home screen.
extreme. Each suit was irreplaceable. Some built 10,000 years ago, requiring specially trained craftsmen to fix scratch
Alright, so
plating
you need to go
and
watch a
broken
YouTube
parts
video.
and stuff. In a major campaign, only 3 squads might be available, a tiny fraction of the total force. The loss of a full
I'm
Terminator
eating food.
company to an alien swarm fleet dealt severe damage because many suits were damaged beyond recovery. These were not weapons that could be rebuilt. They were treasures that could only be lost. Despite near total protection against standard weapons, the deadliest alien predators exposed a terrible weakness. Creatures like gene stealers could rip through the armor as easily as paper.
your way of saying it's
In high-stakes campaigns, the survival rate dropped as low as 20%.
I guess. Are you a good guesser or a bad
30
guesser?
veterans survived a single operation. Even centuries of loyal service
Are you laughing
offered
at
no
me?
protection against biological compromise. If a
Oh
Terminator's genetic
my
code was found
God.
damaged due to
A
alien
reindeer.
mutation,
I'm telling my dog about
demanded
you.
his immediate destruction to protect the
Caitlin,
Brotherhood's
there's a
biological
reindeer
inheritance.
on my
How
live.
long he had
Can you
served
believe that?
did not matter. The
And her
trade-off
name
followed the same
is
pattern as
Captain
every
Crunch.
level before.
Yes.
More
How
power
are you doing, Captain
in
Crunch?
exchange for less freedom. The plate was bulky and heavy, with shoulder pads scraping corridor walls
dun,
and
dun.
standard doors having to be carved open
Sorry, Captain
just to pass
Crunch.
through. These heavy warriors could not move quietly or slip behind enemy lines. They needed tracking signals placed in advance by scout sergeants and precise coordination from orbiting ships just to arrive on the battlefield.
I'm eating chicken nuggets, by the
They
way.
were the
They're
Brotherhood's
delicious.
hammer and never its scalpel. The Terminator veteran sat above the standard veteran because he had survived the centuries required to wear this armor and earned the right to carry the Order's most ancient weapons. But he still fought in squads, still answered to officers, and still operated within a framework set by the rank above him, a rank that stopped fighting wars and started deciding them.
Oh.
Level 6, the Captain. Then came the rank where the hierarchy shifted entirely. The Captain marked a point where combat mastery gave way to command authority. Every level below was defined by what the warrior could do on the battlefield. The company commander was defined by what he could decide. He carried responsibility not for a squad, but for roughly 100 Space Marines, along with everything attached to his company. Ancient war machines piloted by heroes sealed inside them, allied combat vehicles, fast attack bike squads, and ships in orbit. Strategic effectiveness was measured by independent command and tactical flexibility. Lower ranks followed the strict rules of the sacred battle text, But a captain was expected to be his own man, finding his own solutions when standard methods fail. The ideal field commander had a superhuman understanding of war, capable of reading an entire battlefield with a single glance. His command setup reflected this, with sensor screens and tactical displays feeding him information from every front at once. He directed Terminator teleportation strikes, scout intelligence reports, and fast attack bike patrols across a wide stretch of war at the same time. This was no longer squad level thinking. This was running an entire campaign. The novel The Chapters Do provided a sharp look at what command meant at this level. One captain took control of a planetary governor's forces and told the governor directly to understand his place. Another, Captain Sicarius, used his rank differently, prioritizing the personal killing of the enemy leader as the most effective use of his position, accepting extreme personal risk to end battles faster than any coordinated assault could. Both approaches reflected the same truth. At this level, the warrior no longer executed the plan, he was the plan. And when the plan failed, the weight of it fell on him alone. The chain of command cannot be broken, or the order was nothing. A field commander's error could lead to the shaming of a company's battle honors, the loss of weapons and artifacts that can never be replaced, or the destruction of entire cities. On Thracia, heavy losses under a captain's command devastated a full company. On Catalyst, overconfidence led to the shameful death of multiple warriors and nearly forced the Order to destroy the planet from orbit. A failure to predict a corrupted machine code attack led to the complete destruction of the city of Axum. Among the Ultramarines, major mistakes in war could lead to harsh punishment or being permanently cast out of the Brotherhood. At every lower level, the price of failure was personal. Here, the price fell on the entire Order. The company commander's impact was described as being worth 1,000 men on the battlefield, not because of personal combat ability, but because of what his presence did to the warriors around him. Under his command, the value of each Space Marine grew tenfold through coordination and precision. A company never fought harder than when its leader stood visible at the front. The hardest part of command was being alone. The cost of reaching this rank was measured in centuries of service and the inheritance of sacred artifacts. A captain typically spent over 100 years proving his devotion. When he took the rank, he inherited finely crafted weapons from the captains who came before him. Blades like the Talisarian Tempest and the golden-hilted sword of Idaeus. These were not rewards, they were burdens carrying the full weight of every commander who held them. A captain remained part of the Brotherhood, but could no longer experience it the same way. Authority created distance. He suppressed personal grief when brothers fell, because dishonoring a fallen warrior's name with mourning was unacceptable when battle was still called. He chose between fighting at the front to inspire his men and stepping back to oversee the broader war. That tension never went away.
Because you're wanting all these white flags.
Level 6 because he directed the senior company's Terminator veterans and controlled every asset at his disposal. But he remained below one final rank.
Racist things.
A rank carrying a weight so heavy
They're being racist.
Crushed every warrior who held it, wearing him down across centuries of command until nothing was left of the man who had first accepted the title. Level 7. The Chapter Master. At the very top stood the Supreme Commander, and the gap between this rank and the one below it was wider than between any other two levels. A captain commanded a company, a Chapter Master commanded a civilization. His authority extended over 1,000 space marines, entire star systems, and fleets of capital warships. He could unleash the anger of those 1,000 warriors with a single word, and he was answerable only to others holding the same rank. But even reaching this level required a trial no other rank demanded. The elevation ritual forced the candidate to stand before representatives of every squad in the Brotherhood. One by one, a warrior from each squad stepped forward and drew a blade across the candidate's body. He had to receive every cut without flinching. Every blade represented the lives he would be responsible for, and if he faltered at any point, the ritual ended and the candidacy with it. Only after enduring the last cut did the Brotherhood accept him as their supreme commander. Strategic effectiveness was measured by the ability to manage galaxy-wide warfare and alliances spanning entire regions of space. Commander Dante had led the Blood Angels for over 1,500 years, coordinating with the Inquisition, the mortal armies of the Imperium, and even entering temporary agreements with alien forces when the broader picture demanded it. Marneus Calgar governed not just the Ultramarines, but an entire empire, and his decisions shaped the doctrine of every successor order descended from Gilliman's genetic line, more than two-thirds of all Space Marines in existence. The novel The Devastation of Baal revealed the scope of authority at this level, the power to order the destruction of entire worlds, sacrificing billions to starve an alien swarm fleet of biological fuel. The authority to decree that every civilian over the age of 10 had to be armed and sent to war, with disobedience punishable by immediate execution.
She said,
Calgar personally commanded
I like
a
how
task
she
force
did it.
steered on a
She said,
4-mile-long
nah.
warship, capable of launching 3 full companies and burning planets to ash. In personal combat, ancient relics like the gauntlets of Ultramar allowed him to tear greater demons apart with his bare hands.
She goes, nah.
A captain's failure shamed a company. A supreme commander's failure could end an entire genetic bloodline and cost the Brotherhood its home world. Pedro Cantor, the 29th Lord of the Crimson Fist, learned this when a moment of overconfidence led to the near total destruction of his warriors. Calgar described the shame of leading brothers to their deaths as a weight burning a corner of his very soul. The Supreme Commander alone carried responsibility.
I'm about to kick you for someone else if that helps.
No rank above him existed to share the blame. The impact of this rank transformed the individual into something beyond
There we go. I literally just told her to stop talking about it, and like I literally said if she keeps asking for stuff, and the last thing she wanted to do was, "Can I get that?" Like, dude, that was so dumb. I was like, well, too bad for her, I guess.
His body, damaged by radiation and broken by centuries of war, had to be hidden to preserve morale. Cantor demonstrated a different kind of power when he removed his helmet to speak directly to terrified civilians. And that single act transformed their terror.
Why are the civilians terrified?
Calgar's reputation had grown so vast that some believe he cannot be killed.
That girl like smacking. She's like,
at this final level, the true cost of the hierarchy.
The fact that they came out looking like twins.
15 centuries of endless killing had drained Dante's soul. He continued to lead not out of ambition, but because visions had shown him that he.
Are you like smacking on a? Are you like smacking? Are you like smacking on a Tootsie Roll?
That belief was stronger than his wish for the peace.
What are you eating? Is it like candy? A Tootsie Roll?
The Rubicon Primera surgery. Did
they put peanut butter in your mouth? What is in your mouth?
Show a new path forward for the Space Marines of the future.
Did they put peanut butter in your mouth? Is it a Tootsie Roll? What is it? I want to know.
Survival of Space Marines above all other causes, including the protection of civilians, even when it contradicted everything he believed.
Am I racist because you have peanut butter in your mouth? I don't know how that's racist, but okay, maybe, yeah.
The Brotherhood survived. Long after
if me asking you if you have peanut butter in your mouth or eating Tootsie Rolls is racist, I'm all for it.
A strategic objective. That decision was described as the hardest thing a warrior could ever know. He held the
pretzel ball. Why the hell are you smacking on pretzel balls?
He received oaths of loyalty from every captain, and he possessed one authority no other rank carried: the power to send away.
Are you sucking the salt off some balls?
Legacy, its biological future, to ensure the order could rise again, even if the current generation was destroyed.
If they're like salty balls, I mean,
and each one extracted a price. The
might have salty balls.
I don't. Lost his name, and the neophyte lost his human body. The battle brother lost his individual identity, while the veteran lost the simplicity of a soldier.
Oh no, she's choking on my salty balls.
And the captain lost his place among brothers. The chapter master lost everything that once made him a person.
Girls, this is why you don't put balls in your mouth.
The only escape was a death he was never permitted to ask.
No matter how salty.
But for some warriors, the latter did not end at the chapter master's throne. They were pulled from their brotherhoods entirely, handpicked to serve a secret order answering only to the Inquisition, hunting alien threats the rest of the Imperium was never meant to know about. Watch their full story here.
The Death Watch is the Imperium's most dangerous secret. An elite force of space marines taken from their chapters, handed to the Inquisition, and sent to fight wars that no one else is allowed to know about. They study
Balls.
instead
How
of
you
simply
doing there,
destroying.
French fry?
They use
You
weapons
wanna
the
try my
Imperium considers
balls?
forbidden. And they operate under a level of secrecy
Legma.
that makes accountability impossible.
Hey honey, do you like CDs or cassettes?
Survival rate so brutal that only 1 in 20 ever comes
Balls energy.
Space
Balls to the
Marines
wall.
to their Primarchs and the Emperor. That has been the oldest rule in the Imperium for 10,000
The only music
years.
you listen to
The
are
Inquisition
ball
owns
busters.
No Primarch, carries no gene seed, and was never part of the Emperor's original design for the Adeptus Astartes. Yet the Inquisition commands its own force of Space Marines, because military disasters so complete that it destroys humanity's empire forced the Imperium to break its own rules. This system
This
worked,
dog is trying
but
to
it
sit
also
on me.
destroyed nearly everyone who served in it. Those who survived carried secrets they could never share, loyalties that brothers could never understand, and scars that
She
no
stepped
one
on me
could
because she's
heal.
a dog?
One of those
She's so
survivors
mean.
was a former captain of the Ultramarines, falsely accused.
Why are you laughing? Why are you being such a punk?
Over a century of interrogation. When they finally
I'm
cleared
telling my
him,
grandma
his life was
on
gone.
you, okay?
He
Thank you,
stripped
honey.
the colors from his armor, buried his name, and entered the death.
Hey, so they told me about your toe-sucking attitude? What's that about?
His story is one of the most remarkable in the Watch's history. And
Friends?
we'll come back to him later.
Oh, that's right.
This is the
Yeah,
full story of
Friends.
the Death Watch.
Yeah.
How it was created, how it fights, what it costs, and why the Imperium can't survive without it.
Yeah. Megan told me that I should just say that you guys
During
are
the Great
friends.
Crusade,
Yeah.
and even through the dark times of the Horus Heresy, alien races were
What do you
not
think
the
I should tell
primary concern.
Rachel?
Orcs were slaughtered in the trillions. The Elgar were
Tell
barely
Rachel that you
surviving,
keep on
and the
sucking
Upanishads
balls?
slept in their
Okay, honey.
tombs.
I'll tell
The
Rachel.
Terrans had not yet appeared, and there was no real need for a specialized alien
But Rachel
hunting
needs to know that you
force
can't stop sucking
when the
balls.
standard Space Marine legions could handle the task alongside
Yeah,
the Imperial
Megan told me to
Guard.
tell you that you guys have never been friends, but I should just tell you that you guys are friends so you don't get hurt.
Knowledge threats of the Grey Knights to contain them. But large alien threats of comparable
You're gonna sing
scale
Autistic? What is that? Is that like a song? Is that like Disney?
Gap nearly cost the Imperium everything,
Autistic.
when the War of the Beast erupted in the 32nd millennium. An orc tyrant of immense power.
How about you actually try to
raised
sing
their
good,
horns
and maybe
into
one day
a
you'll
single
become
flying
good.
force and drove them straight at Terra. This was not a typical invasion because the beast fielded weapons and tactics that rivaled anything the Imperium had seen since the Great Crusade. Orc attack marines, war machines so large they warped gravity around nearby planets, teleported into Imperial space and smashed aside every fleet sent to stop them. These were not crude asteroids strapped with engines, but weapons platforms the size of small worlds. And the simple act of teleporting one near a planet caused devastation on the surface below before a single shot was fired. Entire chapters threw themselves at the Greenskin advance and were ground to nothing. Traditional strategies, the kind that relied on massive armies and grinding losses, cost the Imperium world after world without slowing the enemy, and even combined chapter assaults could not break the advance. Terra itself lay in the shadow of an invasion force that seemed unstoppable. Lord Commander Courland, the sole surviving member of the Imperial Fists, and the newly elected leader of the Imperium's military, recognized that raw force alone could not win this war. As described in Watches of Death, the last son of Dorn drew his inspiration from the Officio Assassinorum, where the Imperium's standard armies fought like a broadsword, swinging hard and absorbing punishment. The Lord Commander proposed a force that would fight like a knife, small and precise and aimed at the throat. Instead of matching the orcs with raw numbers, this new force would target Greenskin leadership with cross-chapter kill teams operating behind enemy lines. If the head died, the body would fall apart. But the moment he proposed this plan, the political machinery of Terra turned against him. They saw a power grab.
I'm gonna eat
Because the
these
memory of the
balls.
Horus
She's gonna
Heresy
eat
still
these
loomed over
balls.
every decision on Terra. Roughly 1,500
She's
years
been a
ago,
good thing.
the War Master
Hey guys, I'm
Horus
gonna go put some.
united
I'm gonna go put some clothes in the wash real quick. Be right
as a
back.
single commander and nearly destroyed the Imperium from within. So the idea of one man controlling warriors drawn from every chapter triggered that same deep fear. The ruling council called the proposal monstrous, and compared it to a coup designed to rebuild the old legions under a single warlord. This was not just a military debate, but a political crisis wrapped inside a war for survival. And the High Lords were reluctant to approve the formation of what they considered a dangerously powerful force, even with the orcs closing in on Terra itself. The Inquisition saw the same threat, but also spotted an opportunity. Inquisitors Veritas and Renan didn't oppose the creation of this new force, and instead they positioned themselves inside it. They stated openly that the Death Watch was political in its elements and deeply so in its effect, placing herself as a check against the Lord Commander's growing influence. Her counterpart operated alongside her with what the novel calls a clear belief in his entitlement to command, viewing this new force as a necessary tool for a dark age where the old methods of the Great Crusade no longer worked. The Inquisition's authority over the Death Watch didn't begin as a command structure, but as a containment, because they infiltrated its leadership to monitor its potential, to steer its direction, and to keep it pointed at the alien instead of at the Imperium's own power centers. From the very first missions, Inquisitors accompanied the kill teams not as observers, but as directors, who aimed the blade towards specific goals, including the recovery of the Sisters of Silence. Corlin insisted that the force he created was not the Inquisition's to command, but he was forced to rely on inquisitorial intelligence and logistics to make it function. The Grand Master of the Officio Assassinorum, Drake and Vanguarich, noted during this period that the more successful the Death Watch became, the harder it would be to disband, and the Inquisition used that reality to their advantage. They turned a wartime alliance into a permanent institution. Without their involvement, the Death Watch would have been dissolved the moment the war ended, because the High Lords would have seen to it, leaving the Imperium without a dedicated alien hunting force when the next great threat arrived. The first warriors to serve in this new force were drawn from the shattered remnants of chapters that had fought the beast on Ulanar, the Orc capital world. These were veterans who had already survived the worst the Greenskins could throw at humanity, and their first mission was to assault an Orc attack moon with nothing but a handful of kill teams. From the very beginning, the Death Watch was built to do the impossible, with too few warriors, and was expected to succeed or die in the attempt. The first Watch commander was a space wolf named Asgard Warfest, a wolf lord who had fought in nearly every major engagement of the War of the Beast. He helped destroy the attack moon above Terra and set the command traditions the organization still follows today. And his appointment established an important rule. The Death Watch would always be led by a space marine, not an inquisitor, and this was the compromise that made the arrangement work. After the war, Corlin reached an agreement with the inquisitorial representatives to ensure the Watch would fall under the jurisdiction of the Inquisition, while a warrior always served as its chapter master, calming the fears of the wider Senatorum Imperialis. The Inquisition provided direction and intelligence, while the Astartes provided the killing power and field leadership, a division of authority that has survived for 10,000 years. Before the permanent watch fortresses were established, the earliest kill teams operated from the strike cruiser Herald of Night, a mobile base that functioned under the joint direction of the chapter masters and the inquisitorial representatives who had helped create the force. It was a ship, not a fortress, and it answered to both sides of the arrangement, a physical symbol of the compromise that defined the Death Watch from its first day of existence. However, the political compromise of the Beast's era was only the first layer, because centuries later a separate founding event locked the bond in place even farther. A gathering of Inquisitor lords known as the Apocryphon Conclave met on Orphite Forum and debated for years about the threats facing humanity. The Death Watch core rulebook details that the senior Inquisitors present were united in one belief. Sooner or later, alien races would pose a threat to the Imperium's very existence. Some demanded the cleansing of all alien life from the galaxy. Others argued for truces with races like the Eldar. And still others feared the awakening of ancient godlike beings or invasions from beyond the galaxy's edge. Warnings that would prove terrifyingly correct in the millennia ahead. The disagreements built up over years until the senior inquisitors resolved to create a permanent chapter to which almost no limits would apply in the fight against the alien. To confirm their decision, the Inquisitor Lord summoned chapter masters of the Adeptus Astartes and presented them with a vision of a future in which humanity either died at the hands of aliens or lingered on in their slavery. The assembled chapter masters heard the threats, debated them overnight, and by sunrise the following day presented their decision. The majority agreed to support the Ordo Xenos by providing their finest warriors, and those who did not attend the swearing of the oath took it later. Since then, it has been an honor for many chapters to send their chosen veterans to the Death Watch, and a binding obligation for all. This was not a brotherhood born from shared glory with the legacy of a gene father, but a political agreement between two of the most powerful institutions in the Imperium, and its effects would reach every loyalist chapter in existence. The result of this pact defines the organization to this day. The Watch serves as the chamber militant of the Ordo Xenos, the branch of the Inquisition dedicated to the detection and destruction of the alien. Just as the Grey Knights serve the Ordo Malleus against demonic threats, and the Sisters of Battle serve the Ordo Hereticus against the Imperium's internal enemies. Every Death Watch battle brother bears the stylized letter I on their silver left shoulder guard to mark their service to the alien hunting Ordos, and their missions are directed not by the wishes of a traditional chapter master, but by inquisitors whose primary loyalty lies with the state. Their victories go unrecorded except in the sealed archives of the Inquisition, and even their existence remains largely unknown across the wider Imperium. The oath-sworn tithe makes all of this permanent. As published in the Codex Supplement Death Watch, every loyalist chapter is expected to send veteran warriors to serve a long vigil. And this tithe is not a request but a binding commitment maintained across centuries. Under the Ultimaris decree.
Hey, what's up? I'm like coming back. Like, what are you talking about? I say, what I lay?
Chapters like the Crimson Fists and the Mantis Warriors.
Oh, that's weird. Okay.
While others, like the Dark Angels and the Black Templars, view the obligation with suspicion.
Hey, like I sucked the balls energy, fool. You know nothing of the saki, huh?
These chapters still send veterans because no brotherhood may refuse without consequences. There's no need to train recruits or beginners because every warrior who arrives is already a proven hero. The command structure that grew from this arrangement has led.
Oh, it's Poppy. I thought it was Papy. I couldn't even figure it out. I was like, hey, what's that PIPI, fool? And I was like, makes no sense.
Space Marines. At the center,
I thought they were calling me Pappy, fool. I was like, hey, what's Pappy? And I'm like, no, fool, I'm not Pappy.
These commanders usually carrying the rank of Watchmaster.
I don't want to say nothing, but I think I'm a cowboy.
Granted access to the private archives of the Inquisition, a privilege denied to other chapter masters entirely. Even the most powerful Lord Inquisitors treat Watchmasters with respect, recognizing the weight of the burden these warriors carry. The sole and final authority within a Watch fortress is the Watchmaster, and the rule book notes that Inquisitors who have challenged that authority have paid for this mistake with their lives. Yet, that authority exists within a system designed by the Inquisition and for the Inquisition, which meant the Watchmaster's power was always conditional. The coordinates of places like Watch Fortress Cameron are classified at the highest level, known only to those pledged to a lifetime of service. Even temporarily assigned Space Marines are not told exactly where they are stationed, because the Imperium does not simply hide these locations from its enemies, but from its own warriors. Some fortresses were converted from the ruins of alien civilizations, their former inhabitants destroyed and their histories erased, which meant the Watch could not merely defend against the alien, but built its command posts on the graves of species that had wiped from existence. Each Watch commander holds the power to put entire sectors to the torch and destroy whole species without oversight from traditional military leaders. Innovation, which is considered close to a crime against the faith of the wider Imperium, is openly encouraged within the Watch because the threats they face demand constant change. They ignore the rigid limits of the Codex Astartes, the rulebook that governs nearly every other Space Marine Brotherhood. Their numbers remain officially undisclosed, though estimates from across the sources suggest that Death Watch operates with roughly 3,000 to 6,000 active operatives at any given time. This is a fraction of the Imperium's total Astartes strength, but disproportionately lethal for their size. They have no single home world. The largest fortress in the Imperium, Talassa Prime, is an entire world given to the Watch forever by the Ultramarines, serving as both a training center and the central base for
Alright,
operations.
cool. I got my breathing mask again. So now I can do.
And it was here
I can do
that
ultimate
the
training.
Watchmaster oversaw the integration of Primaris Marines into the organization's ranks after the opening of the Great Rift. That Watchmaster was
What the
personally respected by Marneus Calgon of the Ultramarines, a relationship that reflected just how tightly the organization's leadership was tied to the most powerful chapters in the Imperium. He championed the Malleus tactic for combating Xenos and Ultramar, and his oversight of the Primaris transition ensured that the Watch adapted to the new generation of warriors faster than nearly any other institution in the Imperium. Most Watch fortresses host an Inquisitor of the Chamber, an agent of the Ordo Xenos who serves as ambassador and coordinator between the Inquisition's wider strategy and the Watch's operations. The Chamber of Vigilance serves as the War Council where the Watchmaster and the Inquisitor discuss new intelligence and decide how to respond to threats. This is not a military chain of command in the traditional sense, but a partnership where the Inquisition provides the direction and the Watch provides the killing power. Petitions for aid from Ordo Xenos agents are rarely refused, a level of cooperation found in no standard Astartes Brotherhood. In rare cases, a Watch Fortress commander has not been a warrior at all, but a Lord Inquisitor. And in other cases, Death Watch battle brothers have led the forces of the Inquisition itself. Each Watch Fortress typically houses 5 Watch companies, each commanded by a Watch captain and his lieutenants. Most companies are smaller than what the Codex Astartes prescribes, usually consisting of no more than 50 Space Marines divided into 4 or 5 kill teams. Despite their small size, these veterans carry the fighting power of a full standard company, thanks to the combat skill, hatred of the alien, and specialized weapons. A chaplain remains a chaplain. A tech marine still maintains vehicles and weapons, and librarians and apothecaries continue their duties. But the way these specialists work together is shaped entirely by the alien threat they're about to face. Beyond the fortresses, the Watch maintains a vast network of smaller watch stations scattered across every sector of the Imperium. Connecting these outposts were the Dark Hunters, specialized high-speed warp-capable vessels tasked with traveling between stations to collect intelligence and transport it back to the fortress archives. Every watch station was also fitted with self-destruct systems, because the stations sat unmanned for decades at a time and were vulnerable to capture. If breached, the station was designed to erase all traces of its secrets, rather than allow them to fall into alien or traitor hands. In the Jericho Reach alone, stations with designations like Arcus, Valerius, Castile, Video, Ether, and Crescent served as forward observation posts and early warning systems. And these are not safe places to be. Watch Station Crescent had a sleeping warp creature trapped inside its walls, which meant the warriors stationed there had to keep their psychic defenses up at all times just to stay alive, while Watch Station Clayham had been infected by a dark mechanicum force that corrupted the station's systems into something barely controllable. Each station was a tiny outpost on the edge of nothing, crewed by warriors who knew that if the aliens came, they would be the first to fight, probably the last. But the Watch did not just occupy dangerous places. They turned the warriors themselves into something their home chapters would barely recognize. When a warrior joins the Watch, the change is both physical and symbolic. He arrives at the gathering point alone, separated from his original squad, and his armor is painted black. A black so complete it strips away the colors of his old chapter. Only a single shoulder plate remains in the original Brotherhood's colors, worn on the right shoulder to honor his origins. Because painting over the chapter symbol entirely is forbidden and considered a sign of bad luck. The left arm and shoulder are cast in silver and stamped with the inquisitorial eye. and the armor is further decorated with purity symbols and sacred icons from the warrior's parent chapter. The space wolves bear carved symbols and talismans. The blood angels carry teardrops, and the dark angels wear pendants shaped like winged swords. He takes an oath of binding so complete that he is forbidden from sharing what he experiences, even with his own gene brothers back home. That silence would follow him for the rest of his life, and for most it would cost them more than any battle wound. He becomes something new, not quite his old self and not quite free, but a weapon forged from the combined traditions of 100 chapters and aimed by the Inquisition at the alien. The watch exists because the Imperium needed a weapon that no single chapter could provide, but the reason it survived and the reason it became permanent was that the Inquisition made sure it could never be taken away from them, and the warriors who now served it were about to discover something far more difficult than following inquisitorial orders. The Death Watch had its structure, its fortresses, and its mandate from the Inquisition, but none of that mattered without the warriors who filled its ranks, and those warriors did not come willingly or easily. The Death Watch does not recruit, but only borrows. Every battle brother in its ranks is a veteran taken from another chapter, sent to serve a term that could last a single mission or the rest of his life. These warriors arrive from different worlds, trained in different combat styles, carrying different beliefs, and bound by centuries of history that often puts their home brotherhoods at bitter odds with one another. The Inquisition takes them, strips them of their old squads, and forces them to kill teams where they must fight as a single unit or die apart. The tension that comes from forcing these warriors together is not a problem the system failed to solve. It is how the system was designed to work. Few squads show this as clearly as Talon Squad. As revealed in the novel Death Watch, its leader, designated Alpha, is Leandro Carras, a librarian from the Death Specters, a chapter known for their bone-white skin, red eyes, and deep ties to the psychic arts. Alongside the psychic leader stands Maximian Voss, an Imperial Fist who handles heavy weapons and demolitions. He was short for a space marine, but built like a boulder, with a physical density and stubbornness that embodied the bloodline of Rogel Dorn in every engagement. His build was not accidental, because the Imperial Fist had been notably shorter than his brothers since his elevation, and the offhanded comments that followed drove him to compensate the only way he knew how. While the other Marines meditated or drilled combat forms in their off hours, he trained his body with a single-minded obsession that forced the Tech Marines to refit his armor multiple times to accommodate his growing mass. Eventually, his captain ordered him to stop, a moment that said more about the Imperial Fist's tolerance for excess than about Voss himself. And by the time he reached the watch, his frame was so dense that even other Astartes were locked on. But raw strength meant nothing if the warrior standing next to you wanted you dead. The team's close quarters fighter is Zephyr Zed of the Raven Guard, a warrior built for speed and silence who carries lightning claws and strikes before the enemy even registers his presence. Its designated marksman is Ignacio Solano, an ultramarine trained in the precise and disciplined methods of Gilliman's sons. Rounding out the active squad is Darian Roth, an exorcist from a chapter that specializes in resisting the warp, whose true role within the team is far darker than his brothers realize. Held in reserve is Chiron, a Lamentor's dreadnought, an ancient warrior sealed inside a massive walking war machine. His size limits where he can be sent, but his firepower makes up for it. Each of these warriors is a proven hero in his own right, but the Inquisition did not assemble them because they worked well together. It assembled them because their differences make the team deadlier than any single chapter squad could ever hope to be. The Inquisitor who controls Talon describes them as Ordo assets whose lives are spent only where their specific talents can achieve results that standard units would fail to accomplish. A kill team is not a brotherhood of equals, but a precision tool assembled from parts that were never designed to fit together. And the tension between these parts is constant and sometimes violent. That tension begins before the first mission starts. Solarian openly sneered at Karaz's leadership from the moment they met, because he considered the Death Spectres to be third tier and called the librarian witchblood since his chapter originated from outside the Imperium's formal boundaries. He refused to grip wrists with him, and the resentment eventually escalated into a confrontation where the Alpha overloaded his own neural implant to throw the Archmarine against a wall and reassert command. The physical appearance of certain brotherhoods deepened these divides further, since the Death Spectre's bone white skin and glowing red eyes caused other Marines to stare with suspicion and keep their distance, even in shared spaces like the dining halls of the Watch Fortress. They were not the only chapter whose genetics made them outsiders among their own allies. A black dragon named Terence served in the Watch with bone horns growing from his skull, a mutation unique to his chapter, and even his Death Watch brothers looked at those growths as something wrong, rather than a feature of the warrior standing beside them. A blood raven named Gensis Nitorian carried a different burden, because his chapter's origin had been lost to history, and that gap in lineage weighed on him while he served alongside warriors who could trace their bloodlines directly to primarchs like Gilliman and Sanguinius. Where the Death Spectres and Black Dragons were mistrusted for what they were, the Blood Ravens were looked down on for what they could not prove, and this was not something kept quiet. It was open distrust, and it followed these warriors into every mission they fought. The insults often escalated into violence. As detailed in the book Shadowbreaker, a howling griffin named Gideon physically attacked a member of the Executioners the moment they met at a Watch Fortress gathering, because during the Baydab Wars, the Executioners had torn through the griffin's ranks, and that blood debt did not vanish simply because both warriors now wore the same black armor. The team's Alpha had to intervene with a raw psychic force just to prevent them from killing each other before their first operation together. These kinds of clashes played out across every Watch Fortress in the galaxy, and the rivalries ran deep enough to shape history. Imperial fists frequently clashed with space wolves. One side viewed the other as reckless wolf cubs whose childish insults endangered the mission, while the Sons of Rust saw that same caution as cowardice. The Dark Angels and the Space Wolves carried an ancient grudge dating back to the Horus Heresy, when their primarchs, Lionel Johnson and Lehman Russ, came to blows in a feud that was never fully healed. Even the White Scars and the Raven Guard have clashed, though those two chapters eventually found a way to work together. The Iron Hands and the Ultramarines, despite both being strict and disciplined chapters, held enough differences in doctrine that they would never be fully comfortable fighting side by side, and the Blood Angels were not fond of the Stormwalkers, since the latter had once aided them without being asked, and that the Sons of Sanguinius considered unwelcome. Every kill team was a potential flashpoint, and the Watch commanders knew it, but the grudges between warriors were only half the problem, because the missions themselves made everything worse. The sources document a Marine malevolent who suggested leaving behind an injured Imperial Fist and a Death Star Phantom because they slowed them down. A coldness that the squad's salamander found so disrespectful, it nearly fractured the entire team. In another mission,
I think you're a gangster.
Crimson Fist Watch Captain's personal hatred of orcs blinded his battlefield judgment, causing him to ignore the surgical strike advice of a Dark Angel and leading directly to the death of a battle brother. Even the Blood Angels required special attention, because their gene seed carries the flaw of the Black Rage. In one documented case, an Angel Sanguine librarian named Upshot fell to the Rage during a mission against Tyranids, slaughtering 3 of his own brothers before he could be brought under control. He was confined to a fortress until he mastered the curse, and only after passing every trial was he allowed to join the Watch, where he later survived the fight against 3 Tyranid zoanthropes at once, a feat no librarian had ever accomplished. His story was not one of failure, but of a warrior who conquered the very gene flaw that defined his bloodline and turned it into a weapon the Watch could use. A separate librarian, named Leandro Carraz, served for 6 years as the commander of a kill team, driven by a lifelong ambition to bring glory to his chapter through the Watch. His psychic powers came with a physical cost, because whenever he drew on the wall, a crack split open across his brow and functioned as a third eye, closing only when his abilities were no longer in use. Through that eye, he could read minds and project his spirit across vast distances, talents that made him one of the Watch's most valued intelligence assets. The blood raven named Gensis Notorian carried a darker origin, since his abilities had first shown themselves during the slaughter of his parents by Horus, and the anger he unleashed in that moment, tearing dozens of beings from apart, had never fully
She's
gone
probably
away.
just tired. Who knows?
Every alien that crossed his path received the same storm of world-born rage that had consumed the orcs who killed his family.
Maybe
The
people
Black
do that.
Templars presented a unique challenge, because they hated psychers so deeply that before a librarian could even be placed on their kill team, the warrior had to go through days of fasting and prayer, just to stop himself from attacking the psyker on sight. Space wolves frequently abandoned standard battle formations to charge straight at the enemy, a habit that forced every other member of the team to adjust their plans on the spot. The Space Wolves' relationship with the Watch carried its own institutional friction, since on at least one occasion the chapter sent an entire pack of blood claws, raw recruits barely past their initiation, to serve in the Watch. Whether this was a deliberate insult, a test of the Watch's training system, or simply the Wolves' idea of a joke, the result forced the Watch's instructors to process warriors who had none of the veteran experience the organization was designed to receive. A son of Ras, in the middle of a disciplined ultramarine firing line, would suddenly break ranks and sprint toward the enemy, leaving gaps that the rest of the squad had to fill or risk being overwhelmed. As documented in the novel Death Watch, Watch fortresses built systems to contain this reality. A central pancratium served as a close combat training area where blood spilled is blood armor, allowing warriors to vent their aggression under controlled conditions. Some rivalries, particularly those involving Dark Angels or Minotaurs, resulted in unauthorized fights and brothers attacking each other before they could be stopped. To deal with this, the Watch developed a system where disputes were settled through knife fights that ended at first blood, a way to sort out who earned respect without losing a warrior. If persuasion failed, harsher tools waited. The novel describes the penance box, a coffin-like chamber where a marine who could not set aside his grudges was forced to experience recordings of his own chapter brothers being slaughtered, not as a distant observer, but through a device that made him feel the pain firsthand. The Watch Council made sure no marine was shown footage of his own brother blood being killed unless he was specifically being punished, as that level of cruelty was considered too extreme under condition. These mechanisms necessary, not just the action of the brothers, but the nature of the authority that governed them. In the rulebook, the most significant difference between the Watch and any standard chapter was that its missions were directed by the Ordo Xenos. Every kill team existed to serve
that's right,
the
Captain
Inquisition's
Southside.
strategic objectives.
I'm coming, Captain.
Any single brotherhood,
I forgot that's the
every
other
clash, every rivalry, and every cultural clash had to be pushed aside for goals set by an institution that most chapters viewed with suspicion at
You
best,
said city oil?
and open hatred at worst. The discipline systems were not just about keeping warriors from killing each other, but about forcing proud sons of Primarchs to accept orders from an organization that had no Primarch, no gene seed, and no claim to their loyalty beyond the political agreement made thousands of years before any of them were born. The Pancratium and the penance box existed because the alternative was a force that tore itself apart before ever reaching the enemy. Beyond physical discipline, every new arrival underwent intense mental conditioning. Through specialized procedures, each warrior's mind was filled with detailed combat data on every alien species the Watch had ever faced, including every subvariant and regional mutation. The recordings did not just teach the Marines how to kill aliens, but
Oh,
showed
my
them
body
what it
hurts
looked like
again.
when aliens killed space Marines.
It's my body,
Thousands
your
of
body,
checkpoints,
everybody,
torn
do your
apart,
body.
dissolved, burned alive, and consumed, played through the warrior's mind while he sat locked in a restraining chair, unable to look away. The conditioning was so intense that it had become standard practice practice to physically lock the Marines down during the process, because the recordings drove them into states of such anger that they would otherwise attack anything nearby. The intent was to forge hatred of the aliens so deep that it overwhelmed every other grudge the Marine carried. And after watching enough recordings of brothers dying at alien claws, the Raven Guard standing next to him in the mess hall started to seem a lot more tolerable. The process served a dual purpose. It taught the warrior how to kill and survive every known species, and it reframed the alien as the true enemy over any chapter rival. Chief Librarian Bloshane provided the reason for why the Inquisition deliberately assembled these unstable squads. He explained that the conflicts of personality between warriors from rival chapters were not a problem to be solved, but a feature to be used, because the differences allowed a kill team to employ the element of surprise and the unexpected in ways that a squad drawn from a single chapter, trained in a single doctrine, could never achieve. In other words, the friction was the point. A team that thought the same way was predictable, but a team that argued, adapted, and fought through its own internal divisions was not. The proof came in the field. During the mission described in the book Headhunted, Talon breached the command bridge of an orc warship with such coordinated speed that the entire lower floor was cleared in the time it took to draw 3 breaths. Voss focused on total disruption of his targets, while Zed moved through the enemy like a ghost, killing before anyone could react. Despite their personal hatreds, they served one another without hesitation, and Karas used his psychic abilities to catch Rolf during a 200-meter fall on a collapsing staircase, even though the exorcist had just addressed him with open contempt. In the heat of combat, they shouted not for the Death Watch, but the names of their gene fathers, Dorn and Gilliman, as their battle cries. The aggression of a space wolf combined with the unbreakable discipline of an Imperial fist, and the white scars of speed on the attack merged with the Raven Guard's ability to reach any position undetected. The combination of strengths that would never appear in a single chapter squad was what made the Watch the deadliest small unit fighting force in the Imperium, because they served the Watch but fought as sons of the blood that made them. Some warriors came to the Watch already carrying reputations that crossed chapter boundaries. Brother Captain Artemis of the Mortifactors was one such figure. The Mortifactors were a chapter built around the worship of death and the honoring of their ancestors, their bone-white skull helmets and grim rituals unsettling even to other space marines. He rose through their ranks as a warrior of exceptional instinct, carrying with him an extraordinary ability to detect the presence of alien organisms, a gift that went beyond training. His career in the Watch made him one of the most decorated kill team leaders, and his personal belief became the squad's operating principle. The mission is more important than our survival. He would later lead the assassination of the Overfiend of Octarius, a feat that cemented his name among the greatest operatives the organization had ever produced. But that mission would also set off a chain of consequences the Watch never intended. Even legendary captains from the most respected chapters found themselves humbled by the Watch. Uriel Ventress, a captain of the Ultramarines 4th Company, served a tour in the Death Watch and returned as a changed warrior. He had already proven himself one of the finest officers in Gilliman's gene line, but the Watch exposed him to methods and compromises that challenged the rigid honor code of his chapter. And his service was another example of how the organization reshaped even the most accomplished Marines, forcing them to accept the cold thinking of the Inquisition. A notable Watch captain from the Imperial Fist named Bannon served alongside the Ordo Xenos during the wars against High Fleet Leviathan, pulling off feats that others considered impossible, including capturing an Eldar warrior alive. When his team's position was swarmed by Tyranids, and a Thunderhawk arrived for extraction, the Imperial Fist insisted on being the last Marine born. As he hung from the extraction rope, a Tyranid grabbed his leg, and without hesitation, the Watch captain cut his own rope and fell back into the swarm with nothing but a combat knife. Choosing death over putting his brothers at risk.
That's how we choose who's the best out of all of theirs.
Taken over by an Ultramarine captain, who led them to a victory over a High Fleet by poisoning the creature's knowing key. a feat that showed how one kill team's composition could shift and adapt even after losing its most valued members. Keeping this explosive mix together fell to leaders who understood that their job was less about strategy and more about managing killers. Watch Sergeant Cool emphasized that the weakness of one is the weakness of all, deliberately observing team friction to test whether the alpha could correct for that weakness. Leading a kill team meant managing what the novels call apex predators, who smell weakness and blood in the air, and watch captains went further. Scal Morgenthau admitted to using his own squad as bait to lure the Eldar into a trap without telling the warriors they had reinforcements waiting. He justified the deception by arguing that the alien had 1,000 ways to read knowledge from a space marine's mind, so the team had to believe themselves defeated for the ambush to work. Even the chaplains played a role in keeping warriors in line. Chaplain Ortan Cassius of the Ultramarines, one of the most ancient members of the Watch at nearly 400 years old, had fought in some of the largest battles against Tyranids and Gene Stealers, including the defense of Macragge alongside Barnea's Calgar when High Fleet Behemoth struck Ultramar. His body was so badly damaged in that engagement that his limbs and organs had to be replaced with mechanical components, and even those could not fully repair him. Since then, the veteran chaplain had become one of the organization's most respected warriors, and his role went beyond spiritual guidance, because he was described as his battle brother's keeper, guarding the spiritual well-being of a diverse group and forcing warriors to set aside narrow boundaries to serve the Emperor's family as a whole. Not every ancient warrior carried that same wisdom, and some of the Watch's oldest soldiers proved that centuries of service did not always produce patience. A dreadnought from the Imperial Fists named Shabjak served in the Watch with a temper so dangerous that he had, on more than one occasion, slaughtered allied Imperial Guard units during battles when his anger got ahead of his judgment. He would not have been accepted into the organization at all if it were not for his raw combat skill, and he spent much of his time between engagements insisting that the Space Marines of his era were 100 times better than the modern generation. The Watch tolerated him because he was effective, but his presence was a reminder that the ancient warriors sealed inside dreadnought coffins did not always come out of the millennia with their minds in one piece. When words and spiritual guidance failed, Watch captains turned to harsher disciplines. Warriors who endangered a team's covert status through reckless action faced physical punishment, severe enough to remind even a superhuman soldier that the Watch's authority was absolute. The leadership structure above the kill teams carried its own dysfunction. Since Giannis Bowden, an Alpha-designated scimitar, was described as aggressive and arrogant, treating subordinate squads as pieces on a board, and threatening to hold other team leaders personally responsible for any slips in discipline. The system that forced rival chapters to cooperate did not always produce good leaders, because it sometimes produced power-hungry commanders who used the Watch's authority to feed their own egos. The chaplain was not just a spiritual leader, but the enforcer of
I invited them, but
organization built on division. Despite all of that pressure, these warriors never stopped being who they were, because the Watch could reshape a Marine's purpose, but it could not erase where he came from. They kept their chapter icon on the right shoulder and carried personal keepsakes from home. Karaz carried Arcanum, a force sword once laid at the feet of the Golden Throne by the founder of his brotherhood. A space wolf named Gartran carried Hjormir, a chain sword passed down since the days of Laman Russ, and he refused to replace its chipped teeth because doing so would offend the spirit of his Fenrisian heritage. Others preserve their heritage through words rather than objects, since Darian Roth frequently quoted unknown sacred writings and battle texts from his own chapter, passages drawn from works like the Chronicles of Uranos and the Fourth Book of Tuul, reciting them aloud as though the oral tradition itself was an artifact he carried in place of a sword. Trophy rooms line the quarters of Watch fortresses, displaying the kills of brothers who served centuries before. The organization demanded loyalty, but did not erase identity, because it layered a new one on top and forced the warrior to carry both, never fully belonging to either. The librarian admitted privately that Astartes' life seemed far less complicated among one's own chapter brothers, and longed for the day he could return to his homeworld. That longing was shared by nearly every warrior who put on the black, because they served the Inquisition, fought alongside rivals, and carried the weight of two brotherhoods at once. But what none of them fully understood when they arrived was that the Kill Team's greatest challenge would not be learning to trust each other. The Imperium of Man teaches the simple rule about the alien. Hate it, destroy it, and never try to understand it. The third book of Indoctrinations lays this out in 5 words that every Imperial citizen is expected to follow. The Xenos is unclean, impure, and hated, and the only proper response is to see it cleansed and purged. For most space brotherhoods, this is more than enough. You see the alien, you kill the alien, and there's nothing else worth knowing. But the Death Watch cannot afford that simplicity, and the tension between what the Watch needs to know and what the Imperium says it should know defines everything about how this organization fights. The novel Shadowbreaker states that the Watch Council remains split between 2 camps. On one side stands the purist, warriors who believe every trace of alien existence must be destroyed and who refuse to touch Xenos technology or even learn alien languages, regardless of the battlefield advantage that knowledge might provide. On the other side stands the realistic view, best expressed by the master of the Librarius, Marnus Loshane, who argued that because mankind faced its darkest days since the Horus Heresy, the Watch had to embrace every weapon, every opportunity to survive. The realists have won that argument in practice, even if the debate never ends. And the Watch maintains a secret collection of data on alien species hidden in vaults, guarded by what the lore calls dreaded sentinels. This information is so dangerous that its very existence violates Imperial law, and yet every Watch fortress in the galaxy depends on it. The conditioning described earlier taught every warrior how to kill every known alien species. But that was combat knowledge, drilled into muscle memory and reflex. The deeper forbidden knowledge, the kind that could save the Imperium or destroy the mind of anyone who carried it, lived in places most Marines were never allowed to enter. Sealed vaults hold ancient books, data crystals, and memory banks filled with information that would be considered an outright crime against the faith anywhere else. And only librarians are trusted with the access codes because they're judged strong enough to withstand the mind-breaking secrets inside. Each visit carries a risk, since whispered voices of long-dead alien minds reach out to every cyber who enters, offering forbidden power, terrible secrets.
And the
Into
CH.
Jericho Reach, the greatest of these repositories, takes the concept to an entirely different level. The Omega Vault, housed deep within Watch Fortress area, is a massive system of ancient mechanisms, catacombs, and chambers at the heart of the fortress. Its sole entrance is a door 40 meters high, protected by massive armor plates, energy shields, and adamantium, engraved with the symbols of the Watch and ancient town markings, surrounding an image of the Emperor defeating a great serpent. An inscription reads, "Truth is the last fortress." Every new brother entering the Watch swears an oath of vigilance beneath those words, and the vault unlocks itself in response to specific alien threats, releasing ancient weapons, coded data, or strange artifacts to assist the Watch at critical moments. No one fully understands the mechanism behind these openings, because the central repository is linked to reports from Watch stations across the Jericho Reach, and it responds to some alien invasions while ignoring others entirely. What the Vault has released over the centuries has changed the course of wars, and what it still holds may change the fate of the galaxy. Throughout history, the Omega Vault has released everything from devastating weapons to maps of alien movements to a single ancient psychic messenger, preserved in a frozen sleep chamber who, upon being awakened, sent one brief message and then crumbled to dust, so ancient that he completed his final mission across the span of millennia. Secret journals of the Watch have been discovered, stored in electronic form within the Vault's ancient machines, revealing that the organization possesses weapons and knowledge it has not yet earned the right to use. According to the Death Watch core rulebook, at the heart of the vault sits a separate underground chamber containing what is believed to be the Watch's chief secret, an ancient pathogen that the lore describes as capable of killing any alien species while remaining harmless to humans. But who created it and why remains unknown. Whether this pathogen truly works as described or is simply one more mystery inside a vault full of mysteries, its existence reflects just how far the Watch's founders went to prepare for a war they knew would never end. The vault was confirmed to have been built by humans, and recently its mechanisms opened on their own, possibly triggered by chaos or Tyranid activity. Some locks that have been sealed for centuries are now beginning to release, and no one knows what will happen when all the locks are finally opened. Even the apothecaries carry a hidden mission. Beyond their role as medics, they hold a duty wrapped in utmost secrecy, because they must recover biological samples from alien bodies during combat, including toxins, bioacids, and nerve poisons, and send them directly to the Ordo Xenos so that the Inquisition can develop better methods of extermination. Their medical insights are turned toward inflicting the greatest possible biological damage during engagements, converting medical knowledge into a weapon. One of the most notable Death Watch apothecaries, a warrior named Kraegor Fan, earned his place by single-handedly cleansing an entire planet of a species called the Fazil that had been immune to normal weapons. He developed specialized toxins that killed them, and once accepted into the Watch, he was assigned to a research program focused on developing viral weapons against the Tyranids. He spent years collecting genetic material and testing toxins under field conditions, but the Tyranids adapted so quickly that no poison proved permanent. So his plan eventually focused on finding fresher specimens from beyond the Imperium's borders, where the organism's genetic material had not yet been altered by contact with human defenders. This obsession with studying the enemy shows in their weapons in every round they fire, because the Watch does not just know how to kill every alien species in the galaxy, it has built a weapon specifically designed to do it. The Watch maintains a range of special issue ammunition that Other Brotherhood possesses, each type designed to destroy a specific kind of alien. Hellfire rounds contain a reservoir of bioreactive acid tailored to dissolve alien tissue from the inside out, firing thousands of corrosive needles into the target on impact. Kraken bolts use an adamantium core to punch through the heaviest armor at extended range, while Dragonfire bolts explode in bursts of burning gas to kill enemies hiding behind cover. Vengeance rounds use an unstable magnetic core that tears targets apart at the molecular level, and Metal Storm frag shells detonate seconds before impact, showering the victim in fragments. D-Revenant shells are built specifically to stop Necrons from putting themselves back together after being destroyed, while Tempest bolts release a burst of electrical energy that shuts down alien war machines and can even cripple starships. The list continued further. Bane bolts, developed over the entire lifetime of Archmagister Aurexia, are considered the perfect round. A single shot placed at center mass could kill any target. Inertial thermonuclear rounds left craters where their targets had stood, and thermal penetrating rounds burned through the heaviest plating from the inside out. Every conceivable method of killing had been distilled into a projectile small enough to fit in a magazine, because every bolt round in the Watch is a tiny masterpiece of war, handcrafted and blessed 3 times over to kill a specific species. The Death Watch bolter itself is produced to a standard far beyond regular Astartes weapons, fitted with optical upgrades to detect species that blend into their environments, and equipped with sound suppressors to extend the time between the first shot and the moment the enemy identifies where the fire is coming from. Special adapters allow a warrior to switch between ammunition types at the flick of a switch, selecting the perfect round for whatever target appears. Deathwatch shotguns are larger caliber than standard and carry their own set of specialized shells, including worm's breath rounds that convert the shotgun into a makeshift flamethrower. The Balefire gun pushed the flamethrower concept into territory that bordered on the nuclear, because running on highly refined radioactive promethium, it combined radiation and flame into a single weapon that ensured even the most resilient organisms, particularly orcs, stayed dead after being hit. It was not gentle on the local environment, but the Watch had never prioritized environmental preservation over extermination. Frag cannons are normally mounted on dreadnoughts, but the Watch modified them into handheld versions that a single Marine could carry. The infamous heavy bolter takes it further by combining a heavy bolter with a built-in flamethrower, giving one warrior enough firepower to hold a corridor against an entire swarm. For confined operations inside space hulks or cramped alien tunnel networks, the Watch issued the Hesh pattern bolter, a stripped-down and miniaturized variant designed for spaces where a standard weapon could not be brought to bear. At the opposite extreme, the Stalker pattern fitted the standard bolt gun with an extended barrel and audio suppressor, converting it into a sniper platform capable of eliminating alien commanders from distances that conventional weapons could not reach. Heavy Thunder hammers, larger and more devastating than the standard variant, were issued to warriors tasked with cracking open the heaviest alien war machines, while graviton guns distorted local gravity fields to crush targets under their own weight. Plasma volley guns, issued exclusively to Deathwatch veterans, delivered sustained volleys of superheated plasma that could melt through ranks of armored Xenos in seconds. But the Watch's ranged weapons were only half of their killing power, because what they carried into close combat was even more disturbing. Their close combat weapons matched this level of specialization. The Xenophase blade uses a phasic plasma field derived from Necron technology and refined by the Adeptus Mechanicus, capable of phasing out of reality to pass through armor entirely and slice the flesh beneath. The Thief of Secrets is a power sword that takes the blood of alien races and uses internal biological analysis cells to adjust its killing power against whatever species it strikes. And the Tome of Ectoclades is a reference book bound in alien skin that lists the specific weakness of every creature described in its pages. The Clavis, carried by Watchmasters, is a device from the Dark Age of technology that contains machine spirits capable of taking control of Imperial or alien machinery alike. The Watch also uses Guardian Spears, weapons normally reserved exclusively for the Custodes, a fact that the organization is keen to keep quiet, since the Emperor's personal guardians would not appreciate learning their equipment was being shared. The Watch's specialized collection of weapons extended further into tools designed for specific combat problems. The Osseous key was a variant of the Clavis, carved from the bones of Imperial Fist heroes, capable of blocking any doorway and disrupting the machine spirits of alien war machines. Stasis grenades trapped enemies in combat stasis fields, allowing the Watch to capture live specimens for study without risking close-quarters combat against creatures that could kill a space marine in seconds, while Thundershock EMP grenades and Nova grenades disabled alien technology at range, shutting down the advanced systems that gave races like the Tau their edge. Electromagnetic scanners and prediction devices, tools that used otherwise lost branches of technology, tracked alien movements across sectors before they could reach Imperial worlds. The weapons alone would have made the Watch dangerous, but what set them apart from every other fighting force in the Imperium was their willingness to use the enemy's own creations against them. Beyond weaponry, the Watch actively recovers and adapts alien technology. It is long-standing doctrine to retrieve examples of Xenos engineering so that inquisitorial specialists can study it. And Deathwatch Tech Marines assess whether captured equipment presents a danger and plan how to neutralize or adapt it. One result is the masking screen, a cloaking device based on captured Tau stealth field generators. Though the Adeptus Mechanicus could not fully remove the alien influence, they created a functional version for covert operations. And the Watch also developed additional active camouflage systems beyond the masking screen, equipping operatives with technology that rendered them nearly invisible to both organic senses and electronic detection. Other recovered items include modified Tau rifles, Necron phase blades adapted for human use, Eldar skulls repurposed as servo skulls, and even Tyranid body parts fashioned into weapons and tools. The Watch gives these items new names to disguise their alien origins, calling a captured Tau weapon something like Eastern Fringe Artillery, as though the name change makes it acceptable. The reliance on alien-driven technology went beyond weapons and battlefield tools. Watch Fortress staff, including non-combat construction and security personnel, were issued adaptive Tau technologies for daily operations, and purpose-built hacking modules designed to break into Tau encryption systems were standard equipment for intelligence operations. The Watch even maintained Eldar hexagraph orbs for psychic mapping, artifacts so far removed from anything the Adeptus Mechanicus would approve that their very presence in an Imperial facility would have triggered an investigation anywhere else. And the Watch did not just collect alien technology. It built an entire doctrine around thinking the way the alien thinks, a practice that most Space Marines would call forbidden. The novel Storm of Damocles shows this doctrine in action during the Damocles Gulf conflict. Watch Commander Jotun taught his warriors to think like the Xenos, to know what they were thinking, to understand their logic, even though their thoughts were illogical. He defined the worst kind of failure not as spiritual corruption, but as the failure to outthink, outreason, and outgas the alien. His fortress housed the Oubliette, described as a prison and a safe where the Watch kept alien specimens that refused to die.
Oh, I think I did the wrong one.
Living Misasar, a race allied with the Tau, kept in captivity despite the fact that its psychic tendrils could plant false memories in nearby human minds. The fortress's great hall served as a museum of alien death, displaying Eldar swords, low shadow claws, and strict jawbone of the Carnifex Prime. Each artifact treated as a lesson for the Watch.
Oh, we don't ask people that question because we don't want anyone to feel sad. I was like, some people will lie, and then some people would just be like, okay, I don't want to talk about it, and then yeah, it's like no. So keeps easier when people don't talk about it. You're all good. I just don't want anyone to feel bad afterwards.
Experience the final memories of that moment. A ritual that identified the Tau's storm surge battlesuit as a threat before it ever reached the main battlefield. In a galaxy where information travels slowly and arrives too late, the Watch trades purity for foresight, and that trade saves lives. The Tau, for their part, had their own approach to understanding the enemy, and each stood as a mirror image of the Imperium's methods. An Imperial crewman named Arctan Bellis, captured during the Damocles Gulf conflict, experienced the Tau approach to conversion firsthand, where the Imperium used hypno-conditioning and the threat of death to reshape its warriors.
Yeah.
The Tau offered rehabilitation, education, and a vision of a greater good that gave even prisoners of war a sense of purpose. The crewman was subjected to a gentle but persistent reshaping that sought to convince him that his entire life under Imperial rule had been one of needless suffering. The contrast highlighted an important truth about the Watch. It was not just an alien hunting force, but a philosophical statement that understanding the enemy was only valuable when it led to more efficient killing. The Tau understood the enemy too, but they sought to absorb. Meanwhile, the Watch sought only to annihilate. However, the deeper this knowledge went, the more it collided with everything the Imperium claimed to stand for. The most extreme example came from the source Shadowbreaker, where Inquisitor Epsilon entered a formal alliance with the Tau Firecaste to conduct Project Black Seed, a joint research program aimed at finding a weapon against the Tyranids. The project involved studying alien gene stealer hybrids and using a field generator to isolate specimens from the hive mind. When challenged on whether this crossed the line into a crime against the faith, the Inquisitor's response was blunt. The Inquisition decides what is and is not a crime. The same novel published how Codicil Carras was saved from near-fatal wounds by an Eldar healing machine stored within a watch fortress. The device rebuilt his body so perfectly that he emerged physically stronger than before, but the experience left him feeling spiritually dirty, even as the Sino device collapsed and dissolved atom by atom after completing its work. The cost of carrying this knowledge fell heaviest on the individual Marine, and the consequences lasted far longer than any single mission. Lord Inquisitor Krypton ordered his kill team to capture Gene Stealers alive, a command viewed as unthinkable by traditional Marines who believed the only acceptable response to the alien was destruction. He used those specimens to lure High Fleet Leviathan into Orcal space, a strategy that was effective but devastating, and the Inquisition eventually cast him out for the collateral damage his methods caused. A high-ranking Imperial Navy officer confronted the watch captain directly, accusing the Death Watch of creating a wasteland and calling it peace. The individual Marine's burden was managed through a system of internal surveillance and absolute secrecy, and even that system carried a threat of death. The oath they had already sworn forbade
I'm gonna make me something real quick, guys. I'll be right back. I'm hungry.
Chapter brothers. And for those who went deepest into forbidden study, the Watcher Protocol served as a final safeguard. Teams often included warriors like Roth, whose secret powers let them help their teammates and execute any Marine, especially psychos, who showed that their expertise tipped into corruption. The Exorcist shadowed Carras constantly, not out of brotherhood, but as an executioner waiting for a reason. For Watchmasters, the price of knowledge was permanent exile. Because they carried so much sensitive strategic information, they had such deep access to inquisitorial archives that they were rarely allowed to return to their original brotherhoods. They carried this burden alone for years at a time, becoming permanent parts of the inquisitorial defense network. The knowledge that made them the Imperium's greatest defense against the alien was the same knowledge that separated them from everything they once were. And as the Watch's warriors would soon discover, the forbidden knowledge and alien expertise were only part of what their service cost them.
Disposable.
The Watch had its warriors, its weapons, and its forbidden knowledge, everything it needed to fight the alien. But none of that changed the one truth that every Marine learned the moment he arrived, because the Inquisition did not see him as a hero. A standard space Marine is built to last centuries. He stands as a living symbol of the Emperor's will, a warrior whose name is carved into the honor rolls of his chapter, and whose gene seed is recovered after death to create the next generation of heroes. His legacy is meant to be eternal, and he is remembered. But in the Death Watch, that promise is broken, because service in the Long Vigil takes the legendary, immortal Astartes and turns him into something the Imperium treats very differently. A high-value, specialized, and ultimately disposable tool whose name may never be spoken aloud again. The statistics tell the story before anything else does. In the novel Death Watch, the warriors of Talon Squad believed it was a well-known and grim fact that only 1 in 20 ever returned alive to their parent chapter. Whether the number was precise or simply the way Marines made sense of how few came home, the belief shaped how every warrior in the Watch understood his odds. That number means that for every 20 warriors who put on the black, 19 died in missions that their home brothers would never fully understand. Most who fell were never recovered, and even when a body was retrieved, the gene seed was often ruined or lost during high-risk operations deep in enemy territory. These brothers died surrounded not by their own, but by strangers from other worlds, and their deaths were recorded only in encrypted scrolls that offered few answers to anyone outside the Inquisition. The Ordos were blunt about this reality. Inquisitor Sigma, the handler assigned to Talon Squad, viewed Space Marines with cold distance. He told the team that they were tools, not heroes. He called them assets and an armored fist, and he made no secret of his willingness to spend their lives. To inquisitors like Sigmund, a Death Watch Marine was not a legend, but a resource to be used up. Not every handler saw them this way, but the system was built to work as though they did. To ensure these assets remained under control, the Ordos employed tools that would be unthinkable in any standard brotherhood. As revealed in the novels, armor locks and neural interrupters were physical safety measures built into Death Watch power armor that allowed inquisitorial handlers to shut down a Marine's body if he became a liability or challenged their authority. These were not emergency measures locked in a vault, but control mechanisms that treated the superhuman warrior as a piece of equipment that could be switched off. Whether every watch fortress used them or only certain inquisitors demanded them, their existence revealed how far the Ordos were willing to go to maintain control over warriors they did not fully trust. The Inquisition gave the Watch the best weapons, the best intelligence, and the best training in the Imperium. And in return, it kept a kill switch wired into their armor at all times. The reasons chapters agreed to send their best warriors into this system were not always honorable. The most commonly cited motivation was duty, since brotherhoods were bound by ancient terrible oaths and formal agreements. Nominating a brother for the Watch was considered a great honor, even if that honor was paid with the brother's life. Some chapters viewed the appointment with genuine pride, and the Crimson Fists, Imperial Fists, and Ultramarines treated service as a mark of distinction, while the Dark Angels added one more layer of silence on top of the secrecy that had already defined the long vigil. But honor was not always the reason. Captain Shrike of the Raven Guard used the transfer as a convenient and easy path to rid himself of Zephyr Seed, a rebellious, arrogant Marine, whose growing legend threatened his authority. In the Storm of Damocles, last Leonis of the Black Consuls was sent to the Watch as direct punishment for conducting an unauthorized personal vendetta against a war-bearer traitor. For the Space Wolves, who felt deeply uneasy when separated from their packmates, being sent halfway across the galaxy to serve among strangers was less of an honor and more of a wound. And some chapters simply used the system to get rid of Marines they didn't like. A warrior might be a brilliant fighter, but such an impossible personality that his commanders were happy to see him leave, and the result was the same. The Marine arrived at the Watch Fortress alone, and whatever the reason for his selection, he was now the Inquisition's tool. Others arrived having already lost everything. The Black Shields were warriors who appeared at the Watch Fortress gates with every trace of their chapter identity scraped from their armor. They bore no markings, no name, and no history, and many were the last loyal survivors of traitor brotherhoods who would be instantly executed anywhere else. Each one sought a nameless death to prove their loyalty one final time, because when a Black Shield entered the Watch, his service was always for life, and these warriors often carried a dark acceptance of death, fighting as though every alien they killed absolved an unnamed sin. Some of their stories were tragic, and others were stranger than anything the Watch had ever seen. A former son of Medusa, known as Mortifax, had led 7 kill teams into a town trap in the Webway. As the sole survivor, he painted over all traces of his former chapter and changed his name to symbolize his shame. A Death Watch dreadnought, known only as Nihilus, served as a Black Shield whose true name was known by a single tech Marine who had long since died. He changed his identity to remain anonymous, and though the organization did not favor such mysteries, he was respected by all because in battle, he was unstoppable. Not every Black Shield earned that respect. Watch Commander Israfil, one of the highest-ranking Black Shields in the organization's history, died unknown and forgotten. His body was never recovered, even when substantial chapter forces intervened in the aftermath of the engagement that killed him. And for a warrior who commanded an entire Watch Fortress, his end was indistinguishable from that of the lowest-ranked battle brother lost on a routine patrol. Perhaps the most famous Black Shield in recent history was the former captain teased at the start of this video, Titus of the Ultramarine Second Company. After being falsely accused of corruption by a battle brother named Leandros and handed over to the Inquisition following the events on Graham, he was stripped of his rank and subjected to over a century of interrogation. When he was finally clear, the damage had been done and his old life was gone. He entered the Watch as a black shield, scraping his ultramarine colors from his armor and burying his identity beneath the black. For years, the former captain fought as one of the Watch's most effective operatives, his combat brilliance and stubborn refusal to die making him invaluable in engagements across multiple sectors. During the critical campaign against Tyrannid and Chaos forces, he proved himself so thoroughly that he drew the attention of Chief Librarian Tigurius of the Ultramarines, one of the most powerful psychers in the Imperium. The Chief Librarian tracked him down and personally oversaw his return to the chapter that had once abandoned him. Titus then crossed the Rubicon Primaris, undergoing the dangerous surgical procedure to become a Primaris Marine, and was reinstated as a lieutenant of the Ultramarines. His story was one of the only cases where a Black Shield not only survived the Death Watch, but emerged from it stronger, reclaiming both his identity and his place in the original Brotherhood. The Lamenters chapter provided one of the most tragic examples in the Watch's entire history. A dreadnought from this Blood Angel's successor was sent to serve because of his impressive record against Tyrannids. But while on duty, the ancient warrior was informed that all contact had been lost with his entire Brotherhood following an encounter with the Tyrannid High Fleet. Believing all his brothers to be dead, the dreadnought may well be the last Lamenter alive. He constantly yearned for death so that he might join his lost brothers, but the Lamenter's terrible luck meant that the one thing he wished for most likely would never come. But even for warriors who had not lost everything, the missions themselves made the odds clear. The expendability was not just a statistic, but a reality they lived through. Talon was deployed to a world where Karas was forced to split his brothers, using 3 of them as bait to draw genes to the ship, while he recovered the primary objective. The Marines were placed in a role nearly identical to the gun servitors deployed alongside them, both serving as expendable elements in the Inquisition's plan. Operations often involved one-way deployments where a squad teleported directly into a dangerous site carrying explosives, knowing that extraction was not guaranteed. Not every operation involved a kill team. The Watch also deployed what were known as Kill Marines, lone operatives sent to accomplish objectives that a full squad could not reach without protection. These warriors operated entirely alone, deep behind enemy lines, carrying out assassinations, sabotage, and intelligence gathering, without any support or extraction. A Kill Marine was the purest expression of the Watch's expendability doctrine. A single warrior, armed with the Watch's best technology, sent to achieve a specific objective with the understanding that he probably would not return. The losses that followed proved just how routine this kind of sacrifice had become. The Storm of Damocles novel opened with the total loss of 2 entire kill teams, Primaris and Orion, during a routine scouting mission. When Captain Nergi investigated, he found no bodies, only scraps and shoulder pads. Warriors who could have been chapter captains vanished without a trace, and the Codex Death Watch documents Watchmaster Valesnas and his brothers at Fort Starshield choosing a selfless strike against the Wad of Gascold Thraca, knowing they were impossibly outmatched. He hoped that killing the Warlord would give his death and those of his brothers meaning, but months later reinforcements arrived and found nothing but drifting wreckage. The Watchmaster's body and those of his closest brothers had been pinned to the remains of their own fortress with massive scrap metal spikes, and each warrior's chest plate had been torn away. On their flesh, the personal glyph of the warlord himself had been branded. The politics of expendability operated within the Watch as well as above it. At the Battle of Black Gulch, Watch Captain Holion reserved the glorious missions of his veteran squads while assigning the worst duties to warriors he considered less valuable. And the entire company was nearly annihilated when his favorites were overwhelmed by a threat the less favored teams might have handled differently. Even inside the Watch, where every Marine was supposed to be equal in the black, Commanders played favorites with lives, and the cost was measured in bodies. Kill Team All-Train triggered a viral warhead to prevent the Drukhari from capturing forbidden genetic material, sacrificing themselves without hesitation. The Omega Vault, the ancient mechanism at the heart of Watch Fortress Arion, sometimes served as the instrument of this expendability. It did not merely provide weapons and intelligence, because on occasion it dispatched kill teams into certain death, never to return, sending warriors to recover ancient artifacts, cryptic
especially at night, I'm like,
locations where survival was not part of the equation. The vault did not explain its reasoning or offer alternatives. It opened and issued its directive, and the warriors went, knowing that the mechanism that had chosen them had also written them off. The Watch even created a ritual to turn this disposal into something sacred. At Pickett's Watch, the names of fallen brothers were carved into blocks of lead and dropped into a pot of molten steel. The blocks were melted down and recast into hundreds of shells, and each surviving Marine then drew a handful of those rounds to use in the next battle, literally spending the legacy of their dead brothers as bullets. In the Watch, even a ritual of remembrance is designed to turn a dead hero into something useful. The Codex also describes a piece of equipment that took this principle to its most disturbing end. The Redemptor Dreadnought is a variant whose reactors are so powerful that they slowly burn away the heroic pilot sealed within. Unlike a standard dreadnought that preserves a it was used. The way the Watch and staff treated these transhuman warriors sharpened the point further. Shipmaster Lonely Farrell, a mortal, looked at the Space Marines with a mean and suspicious eye. When the captain returned bleeding from injuries, she told him flatly that he should have put his helmet on, treating the superhuman soldier as whole that made him even humans at once. Because in the Watch, the mission came before blood, before honor, and before truth. For the warriors trapped in this system, the odds had already answered whether they would survive. The real question was far more painful. The rare Death Watch veteran who survived his service faced a problem that no amount of training could prepare him for. He could not talk about where he had been, what he had done, or what he had seen, because he carried knowledge that his own brotherhood considered spiritually dangerous, and he had spent years trusting warriors from rival chapters more than his own gene brothers. The Watch did not just borrow a Marine's body, but reshaped his mind, and the warrior who came home, if he came home at all, was never the same person who left. When a fallen brother's body was returned, the process was cold and left more gaps than it filled. In the Death Watch core rulebook, the Death Spectres received a fallen warrior with a ceremony of sorrow and respect, involving the entire company in full armor. The body arrived with an encrypted scroll from the chapter master, a document that offered few answers about how the warrior died or what he was fighting when he fell. And if a battle brother fell before his sworn term was served, tradition required that his whole chapter send a replacement of equal merit, maintaining a permanent cost in lives that some brotherhoods could barely keep up with. The rituals surrounding departure told their own story, because different chapters handled the departure in their own ways, and each tradition reflected how seriously the brotherhood took the odds of survival. Storm Wardens assembled the entire chapter to salute a departed brother, treating the ceremony as a funeral for the living because they did not expect him to return. Black Templars marked the event with all-night silent vigils, kneeling in prayer, viewing the Marines' absence as a spiritual trial. Space Wolves held feasts and broke open their gift stores, though the spoken goal of returning to the great halls of their homeworld was rarely achieved. And the Ultramarines gathered as much of the company as possible to see the brother off in a formal ceremony, while Dark Angels sent their departing brother away under an oath of secrecy, reminding him to keep hidden truths hidden. Regardless of the chapter, the occasion was heavy, because everyone present knew the battle brother would likely never return. But for the rare few who made it back alive, the real cost of the long vigil was only beginning. For those who did survive, the oath created a permanent barrier between the veteran and everyone else knew. He was forbidden even from sharing secrets with the brothers of his own parent chapter, lest they too had served a long vigil. And by ancient custom, those who wore the silver shoulder plate were never questioned. About their service. This silence was not just a matter of honor, but was enforced through inquisitorial conditioning, since the Watch used hypno-induction to change the very way Marine thought, ensuring that he was Death Watch first and a chapter second for the duration of his service. But the effects did not vanish when the service ended. Karass acknowledged that the Watch shapes a warrior to fit its specific needs, creating what the novel describes as a permanent shift in identity, one that meant he would never see things as he once did upon returning home. Chiron observed that the librarian came back from his missions with new shadows in his eyes, shadows that represented the weight of forbidden knowledge, encounters with alien technology, and dealings that standard Astartes were taught to treat as corruption. The short story Onyx showed this psychological reshaping in action. The squad captured Homunculus, a Dark Eldar fleshcrafter, but was ordered by their inquisitorial handler to leave hundreds of human prisoners behind the Bazinos without any deliberate pressure. Stand by or witness their question. The companion story, Whiteout, reinforced this tension, because the Space Wolf found that his brothers in the Watch seemed bloodless compared to the fierce warriors he grew up with on Fenris. They lacked the rage and heart that he considered basic to what a warrior should be, and the inquisitorial approach to warfare, precise, clinical, and willing to sacrifice anything for the objective, felt alien to him. But the conditioning had already done its work. He had been reshaped, and even if he returned to the Sons of Rus, he would bring that clinical perspective with him, a perspective that his brothers might not understand.